I funded my family for 10 years and found out. It was all a lie. I found out my family had been lying to me for 6 years while I was standing outside my sister's bridal shower, holding a card with a check for $8,000 in it, listening to my mother through a cracked door tell my aunt, "He won't say no. He never says no. That's the whole plan." I want you to sit with that for a second, because it took me way longer than it should have to understand what that sentence actually meant. I'm going to tell you the whole thing from the start, because I need someone besides my therapist to hear it. And honestly, I think some of you have lived a version of this. If you have, you already know where this is going before I say it. My name doesn't matter. Call me the family ATM. That's basically what I was for a decade. I'm the oldest of two. My sister is 3 years younger. Growing up, money was always tight in my house. That was the word my parents used, tight, like a belt that just needed one more hole punched in it. Except the belt never got looser. It just kept getting passed to me. When I turned 18, my parents sat me down at the kitchen table. I remember this specifically because my dad had his reading glasses on, which he only did for serious conversations, and told me it was time I contributed. Not helped. Contributed. Like I was joining a company? So I got a job at McDonald's. Minimum wage, closing shifts, grease in my hair for 2 years. And every single paycheck, before I could even think about a car or clothes or anything a normal 18-year-old wants, I was handing over rent money. Not spending money, rent. To live in the room I'd slept in since I was 4 years old. I didn't question it. That's the part that kills me now. I didn't question it because I loved them, and because when you grow up hearing, "We're a team, we take care of each other," you believe it. You don't realize the team only passes the ball one direction until years later. For the next few years, that was my life. Work, hand over money, repeat. I covered rent. I pitched in when the car broke down. I paid for groceries more times than I can count. My sister, meanwhile, was still in high school and then technically figuring things out after graduation, which mostly meant filming herself trying on clothes in her room and posting it online. I want to be clear. I never resented her for wanting to be a content creator. Plenty of people build real careers doing that. What I resented eventually was that her dream got funded by my paycheck while I got told to be realistic about mine. Every time I brought up wanting to go back to school, wanting to study something in tech, my parents had a reason it wasn't the right time. "We need you right now. It's just for a little while longer. Once things stabilize." Things never stabilized. That's the trick of it. The emergency never actually ends, because the emergency was never really the point. I kept working, got promoted to shift lead, started taking a few night classes at community college, paying for them myself, exhausted, because nobody was going to hand me that option. Then, around when I was 21, my sister's page started getting real traction. A few thousand followers turned into a few 100,000, and suddenly she needed a content space. A ring light, a backdrop, a place with good natural light and no interruptions. Guess which room in the house had the best window? Mine. My mom brought it up like it was already decided. Not a question. An announcement. "We think it makes more sense for you to move into the basement so your sister can use your room for her content. It's just business, honey, and her brand is really taking off." I remember laughing. Actually laughing, because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Here's the part that still makes my jaw tight when I think about it. I was still expected to pay full rent for a room I no longer had, to move my life into an unfinished basement with a window the size of a shoebox so my sister could film get ready with me videos in natural light on a bed I bought with my own McDonald's paycheck. I said no. That was the first time in my life I said no to them, and it felt like standing on the edge of something. My mom got quiet in that specific way. That means she's disappointed but repositioning. My dad said I was being selfish and not thinking about the family as a unit. Funny how the unit only ever needed me to sacrifice. I moved out 3 weeks later, found a studio apartment 40 minutes away, roommates I found on Craigslist for the first year, ramen for longer than I want to admit. It was hard, but it was mine. I took out student loans, real ones, the scary kind, and enrolled in a computer science program. I worked full time and did night classes for 2 years, then finally transferred to full time school with loans covering the gap. I will not sugarcoat it. Those years nearly broke me. I slept 4 hours a night for stretches I don't fully remember, but I was building something that was actually mine for the first time in my life. And here's the thing, nobody warns you about in situations like this. Even after I moved out, even after they pushed me out of my own room, the calls didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. The car needs a repair. It's an emergency. Your sister's equipment broke. It's an emergency. This is her livelihood now. We're short on the mortgage this month. It's just this once. It was never just once. I kept sending money, even after everything, because some part of me still believed the story I'd been told my whole life, that this was what family does, that if I stopped, I was the villain, not them. Fast forward 5 years. I graduated, landed a developer job, and within a few years, my salary had grown into 6 figures. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it because the second my family found out what I was making, the emergencies got bigger. Not more frequent, bigger. A $4,000 ask became normal, then I'm moving my sister into a nicer apartment because her image matters for brand deals. Ask. I paid for a chunk of it. I told myself I was helping family. I told myself this was temporary, like it had always been temporary, like it would eventually stop being temporary. The truth came out by accident, the way it usually does. I was at my parents' house for a birthday dinner, and my mom's phone was sitting on the counter, screen up, notifications stacking. I wasn't snooping. I genuinely just saw it light up. A text from my aunt. Did the emergency fund story work again, lol? Tell me what he sent this time. I stood there for a solid 10 seconds, not understanding what I was reading, and then understanding it completely. I asked my mom about it, straight up, showed her the phone. And instead of denying it, she sighed. Actually sighed, like I was the one being difficult, and said, "It wasn't a lie exactly. We just framed it as urgent so you wouldn't say no. You always help when it's urgent." 6 years. 6 years of emergencies that were, at best, exaggerated, and at worst, entirely invented. Car repairs that weren't real, medical bills that didn't exist, rent shortfalls that were actually funding my sister's brand deals, her wardrobe, her aesthetic. All of it dressed up as crisis, because they'd learned correctly that I would say yes to a crisis and hesitate at a request. I want to tell you I confronted them fully that night. I didn't. I was too stunned. I made an excuse, left early, and sat in my car in their driveway for 40 minutes before I could drive. You'd think that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Give it a few more months. My sister got engaged to another influencer, someone with an even bigger platform than hers, which apparently made this wedding a brand moment as much as a marriage. And my parents called me, first time in weeks, to ask for help covering the wedding. Not a small ask. A number with a comma in it, framed once again as something urgent. Venues book up. We need to secure it now. I want to be honest. I almost said yes. Old habits sit deep, but I told them I needed to think about it, and that's when I decided to go to the bridal shower a week later, not because I trusted them, but because some part of me needed to see it for myself before I made a final decision. That's where I ended up outside that cracked door, holding a card I hadn't even sealed yet, hearing my mother explain the plan to my aunt like it was a system that had simply always worked. He won't say no. He never says no. That's the whole plan. I didn't walk in. I stood there long enough to hear more, that they were already planning to ask me for money again after the wedding, for a launch fund for my sister and her new husband's joint content brand, and that, if I hesitated, the plan was to frame it around my late grandmother, tell me it's what she would have wanted, because apparently that always worked on me too. That's when something in me went quiet and very, very clear. I put the card back in my bag, sealed, unsigned check still inside, walked to my car, and drove home. I didn't scream. I didn't do anything dramatic in the moment. What I did was spend the next 3 days writing out, in plain language, every dollar I could remember sending them over 10 years. Rent, car repairs, groceries, my sister's equipment, her apartment deposit, emergencies, real and invented. It came to just under $90,000. Then I sent one message to the family group chat. Not angry, not begging for an apology, just factual. I told them I knew about the fun conversation. I told them I heard what was planned around the wedding. I told them the room, the rent while homeless from it, the 6 years of manufactured emergencies. I remembered all of it, and I was done being an ATM with a heartbeat. I did not offer forgiveness. I did not ask for one. I blocked my mother, my father, and my aunt that night. I left my sister unblocked for exactly 1 week in case she wanted to say something real. She used that week to send me 3 messages, all asking if I was still coming to the wedding and covering the deposit, not one asking why I was upset. I blocked her too. I debated even including this part because a part of me doesn't need the ending to be neat. But you asked, so here it is. 3 months later, I found out through a cousin who still talks to me that the wedding venue deposit fell through when I didn't send the money, and they had to downgrade to a much smaller venue. My sister apparently told people at the smaller event that I abandoned the family right when they needed me most, which, sure, let her tell it that way. My aunt, the one on the other side of that door, reached out once, trying to smooth things over for the family's sake. I didn't respond. My mother sent one email, long, full of the word sacrifice, reminding me everything they'd ever done for me. I read it once and didn't reply. There wasn't anything in it about the McDonald's rent checks, or the room, or the 6 years. Funny how selective memory gets when the money stops. As for me, I'm still at my job, still doing well, and for the first time since I was 18, every paycheck is entirely mine. I started actual therapy, which I probably should have done years ago. I bought myself a real bed in a room that's actually mine, with a window that gets good light. Not that it matters to anyone but me. I don't know if I'll ever talk to them again. Some days I think I might, eventually, on my own terms. Most days I think the version of family they wanted me for stopped existing the moment I stopped paying for it, and I'm not interested in funding a relationship instead of having one. If you're the reliable one in your family, the one who always says yes when it's urgent, ask yourself honestly, how many of those emergencies you've actually seen proof of? Sometimes the crisis isn't real. Sometimes you're just the plan. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more fascinating Reddit tales, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to Archives of Reddit. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.